This is our second iteration of the QTBIPOC Love, Sex, and Relationships panel, and I am so excited to be your facilitator today. My name is MINA. Je m'appelle MINA. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm originally from the States, but I've been living in Jojage for about 5 years now. I'm joined today by Tosh, Kim, Carmen, and Phoenix, who I'm going to let introduce themselves in a moment, but before I fully begin, I will give us our territorial acknowledgement. Alors, premièrement en français, nous reconnaissons que les terres sur lesquelles nous nous rassemblons pour le festival Fierté Montréal 2022 font partie du territoire traditionnel et non cédé de Kanien'kehá:ka. L'île connue sous le nom de Montréal est désignée Jojage dans la langue des Kanien'kehá:ka. Il s'agit d'un site qui a longtemps servi de lieu de rencontre et d'échange entre les nations, y compris le peuple algonquin. Maintenant en anglais. One small effort we as non-Indigenous people make in our space is to open up with a land acknowledgement. This is a practice we take part in because it calls us to think about where we are physically and what the history of that land is. By examining the history and understanding its current state, we get into a practice of saying the names of the land and peoples whose land we are occupying. One very small but important action we settlers and non-Indigenous people can take to become better allies to our Indigenous siblings. To understand the importance and struggle of the land back movement and to uplift the need for Indigenous sovereignty. We consciously take this time to acknowledge that we are all residing on what are traditionally Indigenous lands. Here in Montreal, we are on the lands of the Kanien'kehá:ka people, members of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy in a city called Jojage. We call these lands unceded, as they were taken without treaty or agreement. In acknowledging this gruesome reality and uplifting the diversity of Indigenous languages and cultures across Turtle Island, known to settlers as North America, we honor and support the work of Indigenous peoples to build and rebuild strong communities. With this, I close out this acknowledgement in an understanding that while it is important to do, it is not the end-all, be-all of this work. I thank you for your time, patience, presence, and openness of spirit. And now to our intros and our questions. So the very first thing that I'm going to ask everybody to do is to share your name, your pronouns, and just whatever you would like to share about who you are. So I'm going to go side to side. So I'm going to ask Tosh to go first.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Toshiro Mother Sankofa. I'm originally from Ivory Coast, born in Austria, and a proud Montrealer since 10 years now. Multidisciplinary dancer and artist. And on my left.
Hi, my name is Kim NINKURU. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a multimedia artist. I'm a dancer, I'm a performer. I'm part of the House of Sankofa. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Carmen MAYHEM. Some people may also know me as Marlene or also Uncle Marley. My pronouns are she, they, and as Uncle Marley, also he. So I consider myself just a queer performer. I do a little bit of everything. I also happen to be the founder of Sweet Like Honey. We organize events for QTBIPOC who relate to the lesbian sapphic experience, and I also happen to be the mother of the sinful Kiki House of Lust. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Phoenix INANA. I'm a queer performance artist. I do cabaret arts like burlesque and belly dancing and drag, and my drag king name is either Slick Hardwood if you're Western, or Horas bin Sharmuta, that's for my Arabs. Is anyone Arab? No,
Right.
Thank you. You know what it means. It's funny in Arabic. Anyway, besides being a performance artist and part of the Ballroom House of Sankofa, that's my mother and that's my sister. I have a muggle job as like a social worker. My background is in drama therapy, so I'm really interested in arts, healing, and living queer.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm so excited to have you all here. All right. Let's just dive in. The way this is going to work is, well, actually, I'm going to ask one more question that everyone's going to answer, and then we're going to just kind of popcorn around and do 2 to 3 people per answer, however, or per question, however the vibe feels. So, like, you can kind of indicate to me if you want to answer the question, or maybe I'll just randomly call on you and we'll have some fun with it. But I would like to hear from everybody on this, and this time we'll go reverse, so starting with Phoenix. Could you please describe the relationship between culture, or your culture and your sexuality, and that story of discovery?
That's a great question. So the relationship between my culture and my sexuality is one of friction, defiance, transformation, and rebellion. I have been raised in so many ways in very restrictive ways where, you know, being gendered in a specific way hurt me, or like having any kind of sexual desires was like not okay, not allowed. And so right now, the way that I live and the things that interest me as an artist and as a human being are about claiming space and finding my family members and surrounding myself with those people. And it's a very, very long story, but I think I'll end it there.
Wonderful. Carmen?
So for me, I'm Haitian. I was born here, but both of my parents were Haitian. And also my parents are very religious, very much evangelical and Baptist. So definitely growing up, I was definitely someone who was thought, because I was going to church every Sunday, that, you know, homosexuality was wrong. And then as a teenager, for sure, when I started, you know, developing certain attractions and thoughts, I was like, oh no, this is wrong. I shouldn't be feeling these things. And I try my best to, you know, pray the gay away. And so I definitely struggled with my identity for a long time. But then as I got older and got to know more people, and definitely being very involved in the arts, you get to meet so many different individuals, and I feel like that helped teach me a lot, especially ballroom. I felt like the ballroom community definitely helped me become closer and more comfortable within myself. And is it perfect? Definitely not. And I've definitely had to like find, like, eventually finding myself was great, but then it's like I feel a bit lonely. You want to find community also. So then that's also why kind of Sweet Like Honey came about, as just a way to get people together, because feeling lonely is very isolating. And I've been through it, and I don't want anyone else to be through it. So yeah, so I guess that's kind of how, with my culture, since I'm Haitian, they always say like unity is important, and that is my way of bringing my culture and my queerness together.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, snaps, totally, please. Kim?
Sure. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, we're talking about the relationship between your culture and sexuality, and whatever you'd like to say about your discovery in that realm.
Sure, ben, je vais répondre en français, just to change it up. Je sais pas, je pense que c'est ma relation par rapport à ma culture et comme à mon être genre entier, que ce soit le genre, la sexualité, ouais, tout ce qui va avec. Je pense que ça m'a impacté directement, parce que je pense que ma culture m'a impacté directement. À un côté, je pense que comme le premier impact a été, je dirais, comme négatif, on va dire, parce que comme il y a beaucoup comme tout le monde l'a déjà expliqué, on a déjà parlé, il y a beaucoup de refoulement, il y a beaucoup de répression qu'on fait sur soi-même, qu'on subit de la société, de notre famille. Bien sûr, comme le premier impact par rapport à de ma culture personnellement, par rapport à qui j'ai commencé à m'exprimer, à être quand j'étais genre jeune, quand j'étais un enfant, genre, c'est venu toujours avec genre, mon expression est toujours venue avec une peur d'être punie. right? Une peur d'être... ouais, voilà, d'avoir une rétribution qui est négative par rapport à ce que je fais. Donc, le premier impact a été ça, mais je pense que aussi l'envers de cette médaille, c'est aussi le fait que je ne serai pas la personne qui je suis et que j'aime être maintenant sans ma culture derrière moi, sans les personnes qui ont fait genre qui je suis maintenant. Et ça, c'est entièrement à part entière par rapport à ma culture, par rapport par rapport à ma culture. Et peut-être c'est pas inné, peut-être c'est pas quelque chose d'inné, c'est peut-être quelque chose aussi que moi-même j'ai dû comme déconstruire et reconstruire pour moi-même et apprendre à interpréter et à voir les côtés de ma culture qui actually genre me voulaient de moi, genre qui voulaient me garder, qui comme on dit claiming, that were claiming me. Ouais, je dirais c'est ça.
Merci. Et puis Tosh.
Du coup, I'm going to do it in French aussi, comme ça, on fera 2 en français, 2 en anglais. Je vais être celui qui est un peu chiant. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez dire par culture? Parce que c'est ça pour moi, en tant que personne de couleur, expatriée, immigrant de 2e génération, ma culture est diverse et multiple et intersectionnelle. Donc je dirais que le lien que je préfère avec ma sexualité et les cultures qui ont fait qui je suis aujourd'hui est un lien, comme tu as pu le dire, Phoenix, de friction, mais aussi de complémentarité. Je suis d'origine ivoirienne, donc de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, et la sexualité n'est pas quelque chose qui est réprimé dans nos sociétés africaines en général. On en parle, on en discute, on ne le décrit pas, mais on peut en parler. La sexualité n'est pas quelque chose qui est néfaste dans notre visuel et dans notre pensée. Donc la sexualité a toujours été présente, elle a toujours été normale, on en a discuté, on en a parlé. Mais je dirais qu'il y a une friction dans le moment où on rentre dans la description de la sexualité. Quand on veut lui donner un rôle, quand on veut lui donner une direction, quand on veut lui donner une binarité, là, c'est là que je dirais que ma culture est rentrée en conflit avec ce qu'on pourrait définir comme mon identité de genre ou mon identité sexuelle. Je dirais aussi que du fait de ces cultures-là qui sont diverses mais aussi qui sont multiples, il y a la religion qui se mêle à ça, il y a aussi la musique, les cultures musicales, les traditions qui se rejoignent à tout cela. Et je dirais que oui, c'est un double miroir. Je dirais qu'il n'y a pas vraiment de différence entre le refus que j'ai dans ma culture par rapport à mon expression de sexualité et le refus que je pourrais avoir par rapport à mon identité en tant que personne africaine que j'ai dans la société où je suis au Canada. Donc je dirais qu'il y a toujours cette espèce de dualité, de combat, mais au final, il y a une complémentarité parce que we are who we are and we are multiple. C'est ça. Voilà.
Merci. Thank you all for your beautiful and complicated answers. We love to see it and talk about it. That's what we're here for. Before I move on to the next question, I just want to say hello to people coming in online from Facebook and the internet, and say that we will have a portion of time at the very end of our panel for people who would like to ask their own questions. So please do write that in the chat. I'm assuming there's something that says ask your questions here, and we'll get that at the end. So the next question that I'm going to ask if people want to raise their hand to answer is, what advice would you give to your younger self about coming out and coming into yourself? Carmen, you're laughing.
Oh,
I won't call on you. It's okay.
Oh, no, I'm just thinking.
Okay.
I can answer that.
Go for it.
The message I would give to my younger self is you are doing really great. And not just that, I think that you're perfect.
Oh.
And the things that you feel shame about, or that you've been made to feel shame about in regards to gender expectations and roles that have been put on you, I'm really proud of you for rebelling against them. And I know it hurts, but at some point in your life, it won't hurt that much, and you'll be in a place where it's not just appreciated, but it's going to push you really, really far. It's going to take you places. So keep speaking out, keep doing your thing, keep being angry, keep loving and keep guarding and protecting people. And I'm so excited for you to grow up and get out of the dangerous place that you're in so that you can actually have fun fucking.
Beautiful. Does anybody else want to answer? Carmen, go for it.
Younger me, little Carmen. Little Carmen, already first. Stop wasting time trying to pray to get away. It doesn't work. Do take the time to not be so hard on yourself. Let's say, and most of the things you're hard on yourself for, so many people love about you, adore about you. Like, you inspire these things out of other people, yet society and all, and religion and the patriarchy, and the list goes on, made you feel, bad and guilty and ashamed or grossed out or disgusted or all these things, and yet, you pushed through and you didn't listen. And I like that. You're disobedient. Stay disobedient. Stay not listening. Stay listening just to your heart and really what makes you feel good and happy. And also just your intentions. You have great intentions, and maybe not everyone can always understand, but because you know in your heart you're not trying to harm anyone, continue doing you, boo-boo. Continue.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Baby Carmen. Do you have anything to say?
No, that was too
Any more? So I'm going to move to the next question. Okay.
I think everything both of you said
everything.
very beautiful things that I would probably also repeat to my younger self. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank
That
you.
and like maybe just like one thing would be, I would say, you are going to make your wildest dream come true, and I think that like, your wildest dreams come true, and like that's also like something that like I'm telling my younger self, and that I'm also telling myself like
Hell yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I got goosebumps.
Yeah, me too.
Phoenix cuss, so I'm just gonna you unleash the.
I'm sorry,
cuss.
I'm
No, I love it. I'm just saying that I'm gonna start cussing now because it's part of the culture of what we're doing. The next question. Okay, so this is not just a queer and trans panel. This is a BIPOC, so Black, Indigenous, people of color panel. I'm saying that, I'm underlying that, because the next question is, what are your top 3 red flags for navigating queer spaces? And I think that's a really important question for the BIPOC community, especially to share their wisdom, both for our allies to get better and for our, younger generations to know what's up. So, top 3 red flags for navigating queer spaces. And that can be nightclubs, that can be like school programs, like whatever, however you want to define that. Carmen and then Tosh.
I definitely have like a very quick top 3. So first one, if all the attendees, like who it seems that the event is advertised for, is only white people, then usually these are not the spaces that I will feel the most welcome, because unfortunately I've attended certain queer spaces that were very white, and I've dealt with a lot of microaggressions. And the thing is, if I'm going out, I just want to have a good time. These are not the type of interactions that I want to be dealing with. Another one is if they're not hiring any type of BIPOC artists, you're only hiring white artists, because then clearly that tells me you're not even thinking about the rest of the community. You're only, again, trying to put money in the pockets of only a certain group of people, and I myself cannot support this. And the last one, if the space is not inclusive to trans people. I don't even think I need to elaborate on that.
Beautiful.
Wow, Carmel, t'as quasiment tout dit. Mais je vais revenir à l'essentiel. C'est, je pense que comprendre, voir un espace et comprendre qu'il y a un problème, en tout cas en tant que personne de couleur et personne du parapluie LGBTQ, ça serait de voir des espaces qui sont très, comment dire, très, qui se ressemblent, des trucs très carrés, comme tu l'as dit. On va retrouver que des femmes blanches ou que des hommes blancs. Je pense que ces espaces-là sont problématiques parce que nous sommes aujourd'hui dans des sociétés où c'est plus possible de dire qu'on ne peut pas avoir de personnes hors que nos communautés qui peuvent s'investir dans non seulement des événements qu'on met en avant, mais aussi dans les lieux dans lesquels on travaille. Comme tu as dit, si dans la représentation des employés, il n'y a absolument aucune représentation autre que ce qui est supposé être la norme, je pense qu'il y a un problème. Ensuite aussi, que ce soit dans des espaces aussi qui se diraient féministes, mais où on retrouverait que des idées qui seraient recentrées ou des concepts qui ne concernent qu'une population précise, privilégiée. Je trouve qu'il y a aussi un problème à ce moment-là. Des espaces où il y a aussi beaucoup de projections, où vous êtes vu ou que vous représentez une représentation de votre communauté. Je trouve aussi que ces espaces-là ne sont pas appropriés parce que nous sommes multiples, nous sommes diverses, nous ne sommes pas les représentants d'une communauté. Donc, vous savez, dans ces espaces-là, quand vous mettez en avant parce que vous êtes cette diversité-là, il y a un problème, and that is not to be preached. Il y a un problème, c'est soit du fétichisme, soit du racisme, mais malsain. Donc, on évite ces lieux-là. Et dernièrement, je dirais que c'est des endroits où on vous demande, c'est important le consentement. You have to be in a space where when you say no, it's a no. When you say yeah, it's a yeah. And people are here and listening to what you have to say. Moi, je dirais que ça serait ça, les 3 red flags. Si tu n'es pas écouté, si on ne respecte pas ce que tu as à dire, ce que tu mets de l'avant, get out. S'il n'y a personne qui te ressemble, si tu vois que c'est un espèce d'endroit monolithique où les gens pensent de la même façon et que tout le monde te ressemble, get out. And thirdly, c'est genre, if you're surrounded by people that think they're like working for a certain cause et qu'il n'y a personne d'autre qui n'est pas associé à eux, mais qui ne leur ressemble pas, il y a un problème aussi. We have to be diverse and we have to be in the spaces where we are being represented. Donc pour moi, ça serait ça vraiment les 3.
I'd love to just add to that.
Yeah.
I think you really said it all, but I want to add that if the space, or let's say it's a performance event, if all I'm seeing is not just white people, but a certain body type, like all skinny, you know, like, or like one type of body, if you know what I'm saying, like regardless of how the person identifies like on a gender spectrum, that's like not something you can assume, but I want to see different bodies in the space. I want to see fat people, I want to see old people, I want to see people with hijab, and I want to see, like, you know what I'm saying, like queerness is not, when queerness is like made to seem like one type of product, I feel very like, you know, very suspicious of that. And the other thing that I like, so in terms of red flags, is like if a space is apolitical, like very neutral in terms of something that's happening in the world, I think that that's fucked up. Like, say we're going through a pandemic and a party's happening, but they made no mention about safety or anything like that, or like let's say a party's happening on occupied territory, or it's got a group of people who are maybe having beef with another group of people. I think statements need to be made, thought through, spoken with the people who are most affected about that issue, and not be apolitical. I think that is really disheartening, because at the crux of queerness for me is political revolution.
Beautiful. Yes, all the snaps.
All my family over there.
It's good. We love a wholesome family vibe. That's what we're here for.
I just want to
Yeah,
add
please do.
something. I think that everybody said like very accurate and very meaningful red flags that everybody can kind of like use. I would say that like for me personally, it because of my experience, my human experience, because of like the person that I am, for me like spaces that are when like the people who are at the kind of like in the organization kind of like level of like spaces, whether that's an event, like you said, like a performance or something, I think that like the idea of having Black people and other people of color in front of, let's say, camera or on stages or on your what do you call it, posters and things like that, like having us being like faces, like without like actually like being the people who are making decisions, people who are actually like leading where an organization or something is supposed to be going. I find that very disingenuous and very extremely dangerous, actually, because I think that like, it very much like replicates the ideas of you know, people who can and people who can't, and just continuously just like create more and more of a gap between, you know, kind of like this idea that like, oh, if people don't have the resources, then they can't do it. Then but who ends up having all the resources all the time and being able to do things, and then kind of just like turning around and being like, okay, but like because I can do it, I'm gonna put you as the face because you can't do it. But this assumption that like people cannot is really just, it's kind of bullshit, right? But like also it's so apparent for me here in Montreal how there's a lot of spaces that really kind of just like use this kind of like blanket term of BIPOC as like a safe ground for any kind of critiques or improvements about the work that they do, because they kind of just like throw around this blanket term of like BIPOC, but like never be having like an actual substantial amount of like Black people or Indigenous people who are in the spaces of like organizing and actually making the decisions. So it all ends up being kind of just like very colonial in the way that like it's like certain spaces can be shaped. And that makes me kind of uncomfortable.
Hell yeah.
And a lot of spaces are like this, and I kind of don't like that.
Yeah, that's a great point to point out. I want to also say that this is like, as everybody's speaking, I'm like, this also applies so heavily to like literally any other place. I'm thinking particularly of like the nonprofit world and what makes a place like inclusive and so on, and just all of these words of wisdom can be spread out into so many other walks and areas of life. But because we love a compliment sandwich, the next question is talking about green flags. Yay! So if anybody wants to share green flags for spaces that maybe not necessarily like the exact opposite of what everybody just shared, but like if there's something else that you want to add that's like this makes me feel amazing and I know I want to support this because...
Green flags, I would say I'd say maybe, I mean, for me as like an event organizer, like someone who organizes event and who is also very, very close to my communities. Like I love my people and my people love me. So
That's right. Yes,
that's right.
It's true.
it's beautiful.
And so I'm very like it's very important to see. It's very important for me to see like the love that people have and the joy that people be feeling in spaces that like I create or spaces that I help create, whether that's just like my house or an actual just like event that like I'm throwing. And like I've been creating these cookouts for the past like 2 years, I guess now. Like I started it during the pandemic. I think it was funny earlier you mentioned something about like, I don't know who mentioned something about like feeling isolated, like queer people feeling isolated, and like obviously like the pandemic was like a very isolating moment for all of us. Sometimes like towards like the warmer month, like around like September, like early September, like I had like my first like little like cookout event that was also meant to it was a cookout only for Black people, and it was just to gather us, just to be together, and to also kind of like give back to people. And I think that like for me that's been like something that like I've really learned from, and have grown to see how like people who feel good about something, like it really shows as like as someone who organizes something, as an organizer, I guess. When people like are really like feeling their soul and spirit kind of just like in peace, like in a space, like it shows. And I think that sometimes like it's just a feeling thing, you know, it's just a feeling. It's just about like creating the feeling. And and I think obviously like having the greenest flag for me is like when Black trans people are spearheading the whole thing. That's like the greenest flag for me.
I love it. Thank you. Sure.
Okay, I have a few green flags. So for me, one of my green flags definitely has to do with like the intention of the event, because as Kim says, community to me is very important. It should be about gathering people, bringing people together, making sure people are having a good time, they're able to create bonds, meet people, network, and go home later feeling happy that they went there. Because I will say there are events where they want people to come, but it looks more as just for money, as if we're just trying to enrich our own pockets. We're not really trying to do it for the sake of community, for the people who are attending. And these types of events I have a lot of issues with, because oftentimes when you don't do things with the intention of the community, there's certain things that you do not plan for to protect and make sure and for the safety of your guests. And then oftentimes this is where these events can become a bit dangerous and at risk, and a lot of things can happen, and then it can, and then there's no accountability either, because the people are like, well, I got my money, sucks that you guys didn't have a good time, but like next event come through and I do not tolerate this. So to me, if I can see that your event is intentional, it's really for the people, you want people to gather, and normally once it's those types of events and people go, they have a great time, and I feel happy to go to these events. I feel good, I feel uplifted. Another one that's just for me is like when I get to hear the types of music that I like, because as a queer person, it's not everywhere. Let's say for me, for example, there are certain areas in the village, they're not always my cup of tea. I love Lady Gaga, I love Madonna, but this is not what my hips and waist want to dance to. Meaning I want to hear music that really sets my soul on fire. So to me, these are definitely a green, a plus. I'm like, ooh, yes, I'm definitely interested in going to this type of event. And also, if I see that the organizers are trying to make their event as accessible as they can. As in here in Montreal, we do have an issue where there are a lot of venue spaces that are upstairs. So then at that point, it definitely makes it difficult for people that have difficulty, walking if they're wheelchair bound or things of the sort. But even, let's say, when it comes to the queer community, people should also be thinking of being able to make the cost of being able to attend the events. As we said, no one should be feeling isolated, and definitely not just because they have lack of funds. Just because you have lack of funds doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to have fun with friends and meet people and gather. So meaning either having an event that's able to be free or having a few pay what you can tickets, I think is very interesting, and or even having things during the summer in a park where it's outside is also more COVID friendly, for example. Like finding different ways. Of course, it can't be all events all the time, but at least if I feel like there's an effort, then already that's an effort in the right direction. So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I would like to wax poetic about Sweet Like Honey.
Hell yeah.
I have this like my big green flag. It's like the biggest. It's just such a beautiful. Yeah, I just want to talk about it. So, Sweet Like Honey is an event, like organization run by these three people: Fabi, Carmen, and Co, who's not here. And these people.
Fabi.
And who?
And Fabi.
Oh, I mentioned Fabi first. I won't forget you. Come on now. And so these people really have their ears to the ground, and so they're really interested in what their community, how they define their community, and what they desire. So they're really wanting to know, what do we want? And then they're giving it to us. So it's like really hot and sexy and like nasty. And then and it's like very intentional, as you said, Carmen. It's very like Kim, you talked about employing Black people and people of color and Indigenous people behind the scenes and in the organization and in the decision-making process. It's not just the attendees who are like a spectacle for everyone to enjoy and like walk around and be like taking pictures with the cool Black person or whatever. It's like real, everyone's involved. There's so many opportunities for you to be involved, for you to make money. I mean, I'm speaking about a specific event that happened this week that was very underground, and I made my money.
Beautiful.
So thank you so much. And I'm not done. I'm not done. So these people like will invite you personally, right? They won't just like have a party and like spread the word. No, like I receive personal invitations in my DMs, and that makes me feel so special. That makes me feel so cared for, so considered, so part of the community, and it makes me attend. It makes me want to tap. You get a personal invite, you're not gonna be like, You're gonna be like, oh my God, I have to go, I have to be there, I have to look good, I have to, I feel accountable. I feel like there's a back and forth. I am part of the community. I feel very much like in it, And then the other thing is, these events, sometimes there's people who are in it that maybe are vulnerable to like predatory society. And so these people are really thinking about our safety and anticipating issues. I'm just going to say cis men real quick. But anticipating issues and really putting a lot of thought into security and into listening for how things went wrong and what people's experience was at the event so that the next event can be even safer. And they're thinking about their event spaces. I love to be in queer event spaces, but like they're all closed, they're all dead. Like there's like barely any queer event spaces left. So often queer events have to just rent out certain spaces, and that's really complicated and really difficult. And we always have to deal with management who's kind of fucked up. So I really appreciate the work that Sweet Like Honey puts into trying very, very hard to make it as safe and enjoyable for us, and really watching out for everyone and listening and learning and like coming from the guts of the community out, and not just like what they think is gonna be cool. You know what I mean? Yeah, and they're like helping us match international underground queer events, like in New York, lesbian events that have never happened in Montreal, or like have happened maybe a couple of times, and it's just not enough. Now we can really boast a lesbian space, a sapphic space, and that is new. That is new, honey. That is you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Okay, you guys are about to make me emotional. Thank you.
Well, we do love Carmen. And Phoenix, it's like you knew the list of questions, because what a beautiful segue into the next question that we have.
I did know the list of questions.
The next question would be, what would you say are the best practices and resources for finding your space within various queer communities? How do you find them? Where do you look? I'm kind of looking directly at Carmen because, I mean, Phoenix said it quite eloquently. Carmen is really good at this.
Well, in part of my, queer exploration, discovery of self, and wanting to find community, at first it started off, I guess, with trial and errors, as in you try a few different events as you hear about them. But the thing is hearing about them, because if you're watching TV, it's not announced in the ads on TV. They're rarely in the newspaper or magazines. So then it's like, okay, thinking, like, okay, first everyone tries the village at some point, because we are, blessed to have a gay village here in Montreal. Then and then maybe there you might meet one or two people that, you vibe with, you click quick, and then you're like, okay, but like, where do you go? Is it only here? Are there other events? As in me, I was taking dance classes. One of the dance styles I ended up taking was Vogue, which is, a queer-based dance style. So then from there, I got to meet other people. They showed me ballroom. Through ballroom, I also met other drag artists. And then they were doing their own shows also outside of the village. And then you start making these connections, and then you start following people, and that's the thing, staying connected. Sometimes you talk to people, but then you forget to get a contact, whether it's IG, Facebook, phone number, something. That is how you can stay in the loop. The amounts of times people tell me like, oh my goodness, at your event, I met someone and we talked, we made out, we danced, but like, I didn't get a contact. I'm like, what? Why? They're like, can you help me find this person? I forgot, But definitely staying in touch. And sometimes it's easy to like you can't always stay, like, remember and know everything that's going on, but sometimes when you do find things that are interesting, on the spot, sharing it, you know, with a few different friends, and then the fact that they're sharing it with you, they also think next time that when they hear of things, they can send it your way also. And so, yeah, and definitely if you go somewhere, like me, as I said, I really like music. If I go somewhere and I really like the music, I'm like, yo, who is this DJ? Let me follow the DJ, because then you get to see where else this DJ is going to be playing next also. So these are different ways that I find to be navigating. And also, if I see, especially when I see other, like, BIPOC people, I'm gonna say, like, I'm very, like, I could be on TikTok, and literally I see a TikTok where someone's like, where are the Montreal lesbians? Where are y'all? And me, I'm just like, what? And then I go through the comments, and everyone's like, yeah, where's everything? I literally will click through all the people's names on there, see if they have an IG, and send them the info to pages to follow.
So much effort. Wow.
The labor.
So much.
That is love, a labor of love.
Absolutely.
I would like to piggyback off of what you're saying. Definitely there's no comparison to doing things in person like you're describing. But for me personally, in my journey as, you know, a Swana, a Southwest Asia, North African person of Muslim upbringing, whatever, there isn't a lot of representation for me here in Montreal. Like, there's definitely a bigger Black community and even a bigger Indigenous community in the queer, like, world here than there is whatever we identify as, like, Arabs. It's not even the correct word. Swananian, right? Swanese. So now it's like, it's starting to come up, but we're really scattered, and, like, we don't have each other, and we don't know each other, and we are lost in these other spaces. And so Instagram has been so connecting for me to be in connection with international Swana queers, not just in Montreal, because, like I said, we're not represented very well here yet. It's happening. There's a lot of parties I'm going to mention in a second. But yeah, Instagram connected me to, like, international queer Swana, like, superstars, and gave me a vision of what it could be here. And I have become a mother to so many Middle Eastern, North African people, so that I'm able to create a little bit of a pocket or a circle of community within all the other beautiful communities that we are, like, privileged enough to participate in. And now there's, like, things happening, but because we, as a group of people who are very diverse and often have, like, very little to do with each other, except that maybe we speak Arabic, or maybe we're Muslim, or maybe something or something, it's kind of hard to find each other, because, like, we're just, like, this like massive, like, colonial description, and we're supposed to, like, belong to each other, and it's, like, very confusing. But still, even though it's, like, colonialism that has brought us together, like, it is very important for me, at least, and a lot of people, to be connected that way, because we have a lot of similar issues that we're all unpacking in terms of, like, religion, in terms of you know, the variety of skin color that can appear in that region, et cetera, et cetera. So Instagram is like the queer diasporic ether space where everyone can match and meet, and then everyone eventually moves to Montreal. So, right?
Tasha or Kim, do either of you want to add to this?
Well, all that was perfect. Everything was said. I'm gonna just talk from my experience. I use a lot of Instagram because when I moved to Switzerland, to actually connect with queer and actually the Vogue community too, it was very important for me to, like, have that platform. Twitter have been helpful too. Twitter is, like, for me, one of, like, the biggest source of inspiration and connection with people. Another thing that you said, it was towards Instagram also, it was when I started dancing. I remember my coach telling me, if you want to do something, you watch and you see what people that you're looking up to are doing. So that is actually one of the other key that I would give, is, like, having those portal of dreams that you, like, projecting within those medias, and you can, like, project yourself and see that the picture is bigger, you know. You're not alone, that there is other people that think that may actually think like you. So yeah, go for it. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook used to be a thing back then, where Kim and I were like teenager, and we like screw to like see what was going on into the city, seeing who were the DJ that were mixing, DJ of colors, where the people from the community were like going out and like trying. As you said, it's basically a puzzle. You try to like link dots and keep the contact with the people that feel and that want to see places where you're being represented. So yeah, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and yeah, connect with people that look like you and that want to try new stuff out there. Because we are stronger together.
Hell yeah.
And people are reaching you and looking up to you too. So that's another component. It's like we're looking for our role models, and then there's other people who have found you and are like, thank God, you know?
You all know. Just to say. I'm going to just quickly drop, yes, please follow Sweet Like Honey on Instagram. You can also follow something called Lust Cove, which is another QTBIPOC burlesque, drag, performance art, you know, a lot of naked people thank you, on Instagram for events specifically in Montreal. Does anybody else want to drop any handles real quick?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anyone who's like of like Muslim or Arabish kind of identity, but there's Haram Party. It's very haram. It's very nice, very sexy. And there's Laylit. It's very lit. Laylit Party. Those are the two like parties that I can think of.
And I think on Instagram there's also Queer Swana.
Oh yeah, Queer Swana, thank you.
Yeah.
Look at you knowing everything.
Beautiful, beautiful. Tasha, Kim, do you guys want to drop any handles?
I guess you can follow me. at sister _Bettina.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a resource.
Hell yeah.
I actually am now. Like seriously though.
Big time.
For real. Well, moi je veux dire, if you follow Sister Bettina, you will find me so you can see what we're doing. Follow Sankofa too. I mean, like, we used to post a lot of stuff about community. We are starting back to it, but yeah, il y avait quoi d'autre à Montréal? Seriously, in Montreal, it's been a minute, sorry guys, so I'm really not gonna like come up with names because I'm not being following
That's
what's
okay.
going on in the city. Sorry.
It's been a pandemic.
I'll just add two.
Yeah.
And this is, so we've mentioned different ones, but this one is specifically for the Asian community, the queer Asian community out there. There is Sticky Rice Magazine. Recently, they had a whole queer Asian festival, a whole 3-day, and they're planning other events, and they have an Instagram page. And one that's new, it's Lovers Boulevard, LVRSBLVD, and they're hosting, and they're Asian people, Asian DJs. They're having their first event like August 13th, next Saturday. So yeah.
Wow.
And then, hang on, there's also Full Circle, obviously.
Yeah.
Yes.
Full circle.
And El Louis,
But-
and then the other event, the other lesbians.
Oh, Blush.
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 I want to talk about Ballroom from Community too. I think that's an important
Ballroom
one
for
too.
Community
Ballroom
before
for Community,
C. Before C.
which been working a lot.
Hardcore.
Et il y avait Never Was Average too, I think, that we can actually like follow too. They're doing a
Who?
Never Was Average.
Never was outrage?
Average.
Average. Never was average. Okay.
Wow. So many resources. Such wisdom in 2 tables. I love it. Thank you all for sharing. And maybe we can pop them on maybe Full Circle's Instagram or something. We can just like put them there and direct them there. I do want to also just say, shout out to Full Circle, which is a nonprofit here in Montreal that focuses on QTBIPOC youth and young adults. And Full Circle, in collaboration with Press Start, which is another nonprofit here in Montreal that focuses on marginalized youth, is how this panel came together in its first iteration. And I just want to say thank you to Sam for doing that.
Yes, thank you, Sam.
But we have more questions. And now we're moving a little bit away from community and a little bit more into relationships and sex. Ooh.
So, to start us off, something light and fluffy, do you have romantic role models? And I'm going to give some examples. Romantic role models for me, for example, Gomez and Morticia, Princess Bubblegum and Marceline. That's it right now. Mermista and that little sailor boy she bosses around, and Shira. I like cartoons a lot. Yeah. That's my type. Anyway, romantic role models that you look to as queer people. Take your time, or not.
My parents. Aww. That's a joke. How dare you? Imagine. No, I would say maybe Bob's Burger and his wife, like the show, like they are really fun. They're really fun.
Wholesome.
Yeah.
I think it's a hard question because I've never had romantic models growing up, especially models that I felt were achievable for me. And so I have been navigating the world without any role models. But I do look to my friends who are in beautiful relationships, and I do see them as role models, especially Fabi and Carmen.
Yeah.
So cute. They're like a wonderful couple, and they do a lot together, and they work together, which is really a dream for me. Toshiro and Marc-Antoine. Marc-Antoine is like a really supportive, like, performance boyfriend.
Aww.
And I want that for myself because I'm a performer, and it's just not easy to date a performer. Like, you're carrying bags, you're showing up at venues, you have to babysit the dog. Like, it's a lot, and I want that for myself. And also my friends who are not here right now, but Michael McCarthy and Les Blow, they've been together for fucking ever, and they're just like this hot gay couple. They're just so sexy, and they have a house, and they like live the dream. So I want that shit for myself.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else want to add role models?
I don't want to know if the role model is the best, but a relationship that I feel like that I enjoyed seeing develop, but it was through a movie. I don't remember the main characters' names, unfortunately, but if anyone has seen the Japanese lesbian movie, The Handmaiden, and you're just like, this is the romantic role model? But to me, it's just they do have a happy ending, which is not common always in lesbian sapphic movies. But also just the fact that they came up with a whole plan together, and like ended up, they were about to get scammed, but they flipped it around to scam other people, which but to me it was like the teamwork, the partner in crime, the kind of like a ride or die, it's like us against the world type of thing. And oftentimes when you are in queer relationships, it does feel like you're almost against the world due to what society is saying and doing. So I guess to me, it's kind of that, being able to see queer couples have a happy ending, working together, and showing that they can succeed, they can be happy in the end. So yeah.
Beautiful. You don't have to.
Il y en a, mais c'est moins intéressant parce qu'ils sont pas queer ni it's like straight cis role models that we all have, malheureusement. Mais bon, les Obama, of course.
Oh, of course.
Les Obama. I mean, like, power couple, working together, showcasing knowledge, showcasing class, their children too. I mean, like, c'est une représentation qu'on n'a pas souvent eue, et c'est une représentation qui, malgré qu'elle a été souvent scrutée pendant longtemps, n'a pas flanché. Et je trouve que ça, c'est impressionnant, avec tout le amont de regard puis de pression que ce couple a pu avoir, qu'ils soient encore ensemble aujourd'hui, qu'ils soient aussi solides. Pour moi, c'est une inspiration. Surtout à ce niveau de carrière, je pense. De réussir à garder un couple aussi ça. Respect.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you all. It's interesting, the first time that we asked this question, a big thing that came up was how there are so few examples of romantic role models that we have, especially as queer people and as queer BIPOC people. And so I like talking about it,
highlighting that most of these people, well, you guys named real people. I name mostly cartoons.
Still valid.
It's still valid. But I like to highlight it as an important thing to look out for, not just like as the individuals, real or fake, but for the qualities that we're looking at in these relationships that we value so much, and why. Another, I think, good power couple is Every Lesbian and the Moon.
Just get me like that.
I'm getting us all like that, you know? Yeah. Okay, moving on to our next question. This one's kind of spicy. And I'm going to say it's spicy, and I'm going to also remind people online to please write in your questions, because I'm getting towards the end of mine. But the spicy question is, do you have a sex bag, and what's in it? Yeah. I know.
I don't have sex.
Sex who?
Halal over here. Strictly. Have a sex
I'm
bag?
starting.
Anybody. I mean, whoever wants to go. You can think about it.
Let me start. Oui, j'en ai un.
D'accord.
Qui peut varier de taille. Mais je dirais que dans le sac de base, il faut du lubrifiant, des condoms. Tu vois les petits trucs pour chatouiller là, c'est comme ça. The little feather thing.
All right.
That, des gants, of course. And yeah, people going. Et quoi d'autre? Du parfum. Bon, ça pour aller déodorant.
Yeah.
Et des vêtements de rechange, genre vêtements de rechange. Non, ouais, c'est ça. Hi, mom. Next person.
I don't mind sharing.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess my sex bag is more like when I'm like going out of town with, Fabi, for example, since we already said my partner is here, but she is here, my girlfriend's here. So definitely part of our sex bag, it's going to sound weird, but us, we call them our children, which are our two straps.
Okay.
Who have, and yes, and we say children because they do have names. We'll really be like, did you pack Kara and Winky? And it's like, oh, yes. And then both of them also vibrate. So because of that, we need to always make sure we also pack their charger, because you don't want the children dying on you mid-use. Of course, lube. Lube facilitates.
Yeah.
Lube is important.
Very
Water-based is best. Exactly. We always have like a little rag or two, because post you need to clean, wipe. It's very nice right after that you or your partner goes and warms it out with hot, warm water. Very soothing, especially if you're into rough fun. And then after that, you can have a little bit of anything else. Like we have like, sex play cards. Sometimes if you just want to switch things up. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes dice. Some people have playing cards. We have both. Also, sometimes we're into like oral stuff, so food. Like sometimes like honey. We like alcohol also. That's usually also in the bag. I think it was really funny. One time we got to this hotel and they're like, no, let us take your bags. And literally he was like, oh, this is the fun bag, because he could hear like the bottles going clink, 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 clink. And then we had the same person like help us when we left. He's like, oh, I guess the bottles were drank. I was like, yes, they were.
Oh my God.
And you do not have to drink to have fun, but for me, it just helps. It adds to it. So yeah, I feel like these are like the main stuff.
That's a big bag too.
That's a big
Is
bag.
amazing.
Yes, we like to stay prepared, because
We love being prepared. Yeah.
Wow. I am
Beautiful.
so unprepared, you guys. I just show up with like courage and determination. I'm like, here I am.
Courage, determination, and Winky. I'm not going to get over that as a name.
Yeah, it's Winky because he's purple.
Okay.
I know, I'm like ruining childhood.
No, it's great.
Because if you know Winky, you know it from the Teletubbies.
Oh, I didn't get that. Now I get it, and it's worse. But better too. All right, anyway.
Inspiring. Thank you.
Any other additions to our sex bag?
Do you not have a... Okay, courage and
Determination,
determination.
yeah.
I don't.
A
It's
good
just like
attitude.
coconut
Okay.
oil. That's it.
Oh, coconut
All right.
oil.
Well,
Coconut oil.
exactly. Like, you know, sometimes like keeping it just like sweet and simple is also great.
I think that's me.
Yeah. I would say like very like similar. The beginnings start very similarly. Lube, condoms, and I have like I always carry my vibrator everywhere because I'm like, hey, just I'm gonna just gotta care for myself
I
at
do know,
any
yeah.
moment. But also I also feel that like it's like always like it's fun to like add like a vibrator like having sex with someone. Like I don't like I think that like that there's like people who have like a hang up around that, and it's like for them it's like, oh, I'm not pleasing you enough, but it's like, no, like why could we have 100 when we could have 150%,
Right.
you know, like let's just add it up.
Maths.
But anyways, math, exactly. Some restraints, like I like some like rope stuff. Yeah. We'll just edit there.
Spicy. Thank you. Some ideas for all of your sex bags. I will add, and this is very important to me, clean underwear for the next day. I've gotten so many UTIs from staying out, and I feel like I have to say that. If you're listening, young people who aren't carrying extra underwear, fucking do it. Okay? Anyway.
That's the one.
That's the one. I'm going to ask a question that was not on the list and came from Carmen's DMs. So take that as you will. It's also not really phrased as a question, so I'm going to turn it into a question and ask how you pursue different levels of intimacy, meaning pleasure with or without sexual activity. So I guess this question is really around how you began the process of or go on the adventure of building intimacy. I'm going to go ahead and say either with yourself or with a partner, and leave that kind of open to however you want to answer it. But it says different levels of intimacy, meaning pleasure without sexual activity.
So can I just repeat that? So it's how do you build levels of intimacy without sex?
That's what I'm kind of getting from this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I mean, you can elaborate on that in your own answer if that speaks to you, because I do think how we define sex is very important, especially for us.
I'd like to answer this question.
Yeah, Phoenix.
I think intimacy is like something I really am very interested in, and I love building intimacy with or without sex. I love the idea of creating intimacy, and I think a lot of the ingredients that go into creating intimacy is is timing. It's like building suspense in a moment and making a moment really long and heavy, and then sort of creating this privacy. Even if you're in a public space, like I'm an exhibitionist and I love stripping, and I love stripping in front of a lot of people. But I also really like creating intimacy in that public space because it can still be done. And some of the ways that I do that is slowness, depth, and creating like a private moment. I know that you know what I'm talking about. Like creating a private moment in a very public space is like a very like thing to do, and it's very hot and everyone's pussy gets wet.
That's true. If you've seen Phoenix perform, you're aware.
I don't mind adding a little bit to that. To me, I always like to say you can always play up with your senses. So a big one to me is eye contact, how you're looking at someone, the gaze, if you're making sure, like, just, let's say, have you already, exactly, I just gave y'all a quick demonstration. And now she's, blushing and feeling vulnerable, but exactly. And with that, it's like you're giving, with your eyes, you're giving that person your undivided attention. You're making them feel special and wanted and desired and all that. There was no touching that was involved. And that can just be with your eyes. You can already if you're already making eye contact and you're smiling and then you look down at their lips, already that can say like, I want to kiss you. And even then you still haven't said anything, but just your gaze can say so much. Now, if we're going past just like the eyes, and because we said like in a non-sexual way in a way, but then if we have touch, even sometimes just like a small, and you guys know like the little small rub on the knee, the thigh, even offering the person a massage. Like, massages are amazing. They make your body feel good. They're pleasurable. And the other person doesn't even need to do anything. They get to just lay there and enjoy and feel relaxed. And you can add oils. You can add scents. You can play up with the lighting. And then, again, with the senses, you have sound. It could be the music. Already, just you could have your own, smexy little playlist where this sets a tone, sets a vibe. But again, and that can just help people. Like there's certain songs you're like, ooh, and that can be very different for different people. But yeah, definitely playing up on with your senses. And these are things that like anyone can do. And intimacy is not only doesn't need to only be with romantic or sexual partners. It can also be with your friends, because a lot of us, like, we love our friends. Our friends are our family. So whether it's giving them, longer hugs, caressing their back, kissing their faces, it can be in so many different ways. Just opening up, there's opening up and talking about it. And that can be with just anyone. But I consider that to be so intimate. And sometimes, like, because that person is also putting themselves in a vulnerable space when they're opening up about, things that could have happened or how they're even feeling right now, because oftentimes we don't want to talk about these things to everyone all the time. But when you do feel close and safe and comfortable and respected in that moment, and you're able to do that, that's so beautiful. And that can definitely help create, very strong bonds.
You're so cute. Thank you.
Hell yeah.
I'm gonna speak to maybe what you said about how to create intimacy for yourself, because I feel that like I feel like something about that makes me feel that like, I think that like you can't really know like intimacy like with people, like if you don't really hold like intimacy, like intimate time with yourself, and like don't have like, like when you don't know how to like, let's say like pleasure your body, and like pleasure your body in all kinds of like different way, whatever kind of way you want to interpret that in that moment. I think that like, yeah, like finding intimacy, like learning how to like care and love on your body, and do all the things that you kind of like feel that like you want you want someone else to do it, to kind of like to do them for you. I think that like for me it goes with like, as like a performer, I think that like I think about like dancing, right? And I think about how like dancing and like having danced like since like I was a kid, like, and like learning my body and like learning movement like has taught me how my body moves and like how it exists in a space, and that also includes the bedroom, right? And that also includes like intimacy with people. I think that like there's like a lot of like good things that can come from spending time with yourself and like learning about what you like and what you don't like. And yeah, I would say like maybe like 2 tips. Like I think like use like I would say I think that like that's maybe something that can be like a lot for people, and I think that that's very like understandable, and I think that like people have various relationships with their own images. But I would say like mirrors, I feel like mirrors are like a really great thing to kind of just like look at yourself. I think like one exercise that like I do a lot like is like waking up in the morning and like really staring at yourself and like looking at your body and like really kind of and not necessarily like forming an opinion or like doing anything that has to do with like affirmation. Like I know that like a lot of people are in like there's like we can be into affirmation and that's great. I think that like if you want to do that, like that's amazing. I think that like just like staring at it and like holding no judgment, just acknowledging that you have that you have a body, that it's there, and that like you are on a journey to love it and to kind of just like have that practice of not being scared of your reflection and actually being drawn towards your reflection whenever you have the chance to. I think that that's something that has helped me a lot in like developing my own sense of an intimacy. And like a second tip would be one thing that I've like that has like kind of just like has been easier now for me to have like a locked time during my week, for example, to actually like care for myself, has been like figure out what day you were born, like not the month and the actual like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, which day it was, and just like call that your weekly birthday. Aww. And like every time that like, every Wednesday, if you were born on a Wednesday, like you do something nice for yourself. Like I was born on a Monday, and like every Monday is like I take really, really nice baths. Like I light candles and like I put some bath salts and like have like some music, some wine, and I just like chill in my bath for like hours. And that's like my nice little thing that I do for myself every Monday. You know, it doesn't have to be something big, but like it's just like something that you do every week. And like when you don't do it, you actually feel it. You're like, oh wait, like I didn't do this thing. And you're like, you want to do, like you have the urge to do something nice for yourself and something that feels actually good, you know? Like I would say maybe like if you, like I would say like again, like maybe kind of like go towards like intimacy things. Like I would advise maybe like not necessarily being like about like a binge shopping. Although if that's your thing, like you can also indulge in that. But yeah, just like something that feels like intimate and nice for yourself. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you all for your answers. I would add, for me, intimacy, and again with the self, which I'm totally taking that birthday a week, like hello, but stimulating the mind. So I read myself poetry. I know I'm a nerd, but it's really important to me. Or like cooking myself a nice meal, and it's really connected to my ancestry as well of poetry and food and connection, and that's getting to know myself and building intimacy with myself. And I've got some commitment issues, so starting with the self is a lot easier for me than with other people. But just to add, like, mental stimulation along with the other senses is I think, really important. I have one more question from Carmen's DMs.
That should be like, that sounds like a name for something.
It's just like a podcast.
Yeah. Carmen's DMs. I love that.
It's pretty good.
Coined that.
But this is, I think, a really, it's a good one. How do you deal with the over-sexualization of queer bodies? From the crowd.
Do I deal? Yeah.
Another panel.
I don't even know how to begin answering that question. Literally, since the day I was born, I was hypersexualized.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Non, c'est vrai, c'est assez compliqué, c'est assez dur comme question, mais je vais y aller, since I didn't talk a lot. Je dirais que, premièrement, moi, pour ce qui m'a permis de travailler sur cette réalité et d'en prendre conscience et d'en parler, premièrement, je pense que c'est important depuis le jeune âge, parce que comme tu l'as dit, Phoenix, since we are born, there is that projection on us, especially women of colors. That is even like voiced. Donc c'est de prendre conscience de ça, d'en parler, parce que j'en ai beaucoup parlé avec mes parents. Ça a été des sujets qui ont été abordés depuis le plus jeune âge, avec mes sœurs, avec moi, avec mes tantes. Je pense que il faut que ça soit su non seulement dans la communauté, mais aussi à l'extérieur des communautés, que les gens se rendent conscience qu'il y a un racisme qui non seulement se lie à cette sexualisation, mais qui va aussi plus loin. On pourrait prendre l'exemple du racisme médical, où les corps qui sont de couleur, ou les corps indigènes, sont vus comme moins aptes à se ressentir la douleur, ou plus capables d'être résistants à certains traitements. Donc, de voir nos corps déjà comme ça dans une société, non seulement de façon sexuelle, mais aussi de façon sociétale, est un programme qu'il faut qu'on mette en avant, non seulement dans nos familles, mais aussi, je pense, au niveau éducationnel et à l'école. Que ça soit aussi discuté à travers les médias, parce que les médias nous en balancent énormément. On voit énormément d'images de sexualisation de nos corps, que ce soit au cinéma, que ce soit dans les publicités, et qu'il y ait un travail qui soit fait entre nous, communauté de couleur, pour déconstruire ces images-là qui aujourd'hui se répercutent sur nous et qu'on reproduit. Donc je pense que ça serait une des premières étapes pour vraiment comprendre cela et arriver à faire un changement dans notre communauté. Ensuite, je dirais que ça serait, comme qui m'a pu le dire, c'est de reprendre conscience de son corps, reprendre des moments où on est devant notre corps, où on ne projette rien, on ne met pas d'avis sur notre corps, mais juste d'avoir conscience que c'est le nôtre et que, comme tu l'as dit, on va vivre. We're going to go through a journey with that body that we have to take in consideration that is ours and it will be ours. So on doit l'aimer. Et je pense que à travers ça, de se réapproprier notre corps de cette façon-là, en ayant conscience de ce que c'est et de ce que ça représente dans la société. Et en se déconnectant justement de cette projection qu'on nous met de l'avant, je pense qu'on est capable de retravailler cette hypersexualisation, de la mettre en scène aussi et d'être capable d'en jouer, comme on pourrait le faire dans le burlesque ou encore dans le strip, c'est de reprendre ce corps-là qui a été mis de cette façon, de le réapproprier, de faire notre propre argent dessus, de pouvoir capitaliser dessus, ce que ça a fait à l'extérieur. Je pense que c'est une façon aussi de vraiment se réapproprier notre corps et la violence qui a été faite à ces corps-là, d'étudier aussi les violences intersectionnelles, mais aussi intergénérationnelles qui découlent de cette hypersexualisation, doit aussi être un autre pont qu'on doit prendre en considération. Et ouais, je pense que c'est tout pour moi. Ça serait vraiment ces trois axes-là, vraiment l'éducation, la reconnaissance des traumas passés, mais aussi la réappropriation de nos corps aujourd'hui pour récapitaliser à notre image et à nos valeurs.
Yeah, merci. Est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un? Yeah.
I think I just want to speak very, very briefly to the idea that sometimes there is safety in hypersexualization, and then sometimes it's a very unsafe place. And it's very interesting for me as someone who is Egyptian, Muslim born. When I go home to Egypt, I just want to disappear. Like I want to just not be seen, and there's no way for me to not be seen. Like I could wear a paper bag and I would still be hassled, catcalled, and stared at. And it's very triggering and traumatic. And I want to be safe, so I want to be desexualized. But then there are moments where I know that in order to be safe, I have to play up my sexuality with whoever is projecting onto me what they want. And so like I'm able to do that too. I'm able to be like, oh, you want this from me? Okay, just wait right here. I'm gonna be right back, you know? And then fuck off, call the police, do whatever, you know what I mean? Don't call the police, but you know what I'm saying. Bring your big brother to beat him up.
Yeah.
Bring your little daughter, amazing daughter. But yeah, just the idea of like here in this form that you get to see me in as Phoenix, I'm like really expanding my sexuality and like really living it and like and going as far as the limits of it are and really enjoying taking up all that space and like doing what I want with my body hair and whatever. And sometimes I feel very dysphoric about the curves of my body because I get gendered all the time, and sometimes I don't feel that gender. But that's what it is. But then when I go home, it's like I really want to cover up. So I don't know what I'm saying about that. I just wanted to mention that because I think a lot of people in this room know a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think it goes into the power of like code switching, and you know, it kind of speaks to that. Like, who you want to be in each space, and there's power, and then there's not power in figuring that out.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like when I go home, I play a role of like the good halal girl, and I can play that role in a heartbeat. Like you would be surprised.
Shocked. Thank you. You're looking at me.
I could definitely add just a little bit because I do find that both of these answers very well. And I guess just for me, especially since I've been very curvy from a very young age, and the same, I almost feel like I've been hypersexualized since, birth, and still to this day. And I used to really have a lot of issues with this, where I wish my body didn't look the way it was, but not because that came from within, but because I was dealing with everything else that society was projecting upon me and all the different things that I grew up, hearing and learning. So I feel like if you're struggling with these types of things, one thing is deconstructing, as in, okay, these types of critiques, these comments, all these things that society is saying, you can always break these things down, and then you just see it's always issues with the system. Meaning it never had to do anything with you per se. It's always with the system. Once you do that and you're like, well, the system right now, I don't exactly have all the control to change the whole entire system internationally, but now what do I have control? That's it, taking back that control within yourself. As in, just because society says so and so, but that doesn't mean that I cannot love and take care and respect my body in however ways that I want. That doesn't mean that I shouldn't dress my body the way that I want. Doesn't mean that just because I have this type of body that I shouldn't do certain things. Like I remember when I was younger, even though I love dancing, I love performing, I never thought that I could be on a cheerleading team, for example, because I was just like, this is not the types of bodies that I see. Yet I could do the jumps, I could do the choreography, I had the rhythm, but yet I wouldn't even allow myself to even audition. But then as I grew older and I started deconstructing, I'm just like, this body can do it. So just because society's putting all this noise in my head, I need to block it out and still push through and still carry on. There's days it is difficult. It's not always, it's really a journey. And then, but the thing is, the more you feel comfortable and the more you're, certain days it's not as hard, and you also realize that so many people also, they just see you living and existing and they're like, I want that. I want this confidence. I want, this ease of self that they see. They might not always know the struggle, but still, so kind of taking back that control, how, you want to showcase your body, what you want to do with your body, not also allowing people to just say whatever they want about your body, which I know is not always easy to speak up, but that's something that for me, the more comfortable, and I feel like that is my way of also not just by existing, you are already fighting the system, but then using your voice can also push it further. The messages you're saying, as in, let's say me, with the intersectionality, there's so many different things I can deal with, but let's say if I have some man who comes up to me in the street and let's say he's talking to me, trying to flirt with me, and I'm like, well, I'm a lesbian. And then it's just like, oh, but have you ever had dick before? Have you had sex with a man? Like literally, like right away, like this is a stranger, but they'll definitely, and that's the thing, they just hypersexualize queer bodies. Or it's like, but how could you be a lesbian? And at some points, you don't always have the energy to deal with these people. Sometimes you just have to carry on. But sometimes I do challenge their thinking. They're like, you need to, I'm like, how do you know you're straight? Sometimes they're like, well, how could you love a woman so much? I'm like, well, you say you're straight. Why do you love women? It's the same thing. Or sometimes they're like, you need a man. And I'm like, why? Because you've tried men? You love men? And they're like, no. But I'm like, well, clearly you're talking about how much I clearly need a man. So I feel like you're speaking because of experience. And sometimes you just need to make people question, like, what are they saying? Where is this coming from? Does it mean that for sure they'll change? No, but maybe they'll think twice before saying whatever random stuff they feel like to a complete stranger on the street.
Hell yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much. So we've got about 5 minutes left, and then we're going to take a couple questions from the audience / the internet. So internet, there's 3 cameras. Do the thing. But one last question from me, and I'm going off script. I'm sorry, Sam. But rapid fire, 1 to 3 words, all of you, not at the same time, in turns. What do you value most about your queerness? Like the first 1 to 3 things that come to mind.
Creativity.
Creativity.
My people.
Yeah.
The talent.
I have 3 words: freedom, fun, and color.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
We are the blueprint to our heart. Everything we did it.
Yeah.
We breathed it all.
I saw this meme, because of the internet, that was like, my queerness, I love it because it's asked me not to settle and to ask for more, and to see what else is more for me. And that's where I'm at. That's all the questions that I have. So I don't know who's supposed to read questions from the internet. It is not I. Oh, here we go. I think there are. I don't know. Are there questions? D'accord. Ben, c'est bon. I'll just say you got like a wealth of some serious resource knowledge here. You have a question? Yeah, come on up. Or I don't know how you're supposed to do it, but yes.
Hello. I just want to say that as people from global majority, artists and queer, who you are here, I'm just going to have a wild guess and say you're familiar with trauma and being traumatized, and not as a child necessarily, as an adult. My question is very similar to the previous question about over-sexualization of queer body, but this is about over-exotification of your body, of your work. How do you separate yourself or your current work or your future work from the trauma or the exotification that they project on you based on, let's say, one time that you talked about it or one work that you created? And how do you reconcile with that continuing happening for being more creative for future work?
Good question.
I would say like advocating for yourself is definitely like the key that I have found to be like the most important, because I think that like people will continuously do, especially people in the institutions that like we are trying to like, that we're working with or like that we work for or that hire us and all of those things. Like people, I feel like will always do that. I think like self-advocacy and like kind of like learning to like speak up and like say like, hey, like this is like not like my work is independent from, like just because like I'm like a Black trans woman doesn't mean that like all of the work that I'm doing is going to be talking about like these very specific experiences, but also these very specific experiences like mold the work that I'm doing, right? But like one is not like what's the word that I'm looking for?
Exclusive.
Thank you. One is not exclusive from the other. But I think like what has helped for me has been really kind of like putting my foot down and being like, you are not allowed to like talk about my art. First of all, if you don't relate to it from like a place of experience, you need to approach it with a lot of reverence and respect and preferably a quiet mouth, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like very much kind of like, I think it's very important. I think because the reality is that like people in like whatever industries that like are art related, people will always exotify and kind of just like fetishize non-white experiences, right? In all kinds of contexts. I think that like, I think that like kind of it would kind of like be like a little bit unrealistic to be like, oh, hopefully in a few years like it's not going like that. No, I think that like really like self-advocacy and like really learning that you have a say, that like this is your work, and like people who are hiring you and like who are like buying your work or like giving you like the space to express and like do the stuff that you're doing, like they're asking you because they want you. Like you have the right to actually like specify and talk about what your needs are. Like your need to be met in order for you to perform and to do the work that you need to be doing. And those needs, like only you know them, and like it's important to communicate them, no matter how scared or how like unsecure you feel. Like I think it's like with the work of continuously doing that like it will just be like a second nature at some point, hopefully.
Yeah.
I just want to say that Kim was one of the people who taught me about this idea that I don't belong to my public. I saw Kim do a performance many years ago in a very like, we were both booked for the same show, and it was mostly a white space, mostly a white lineup, and Kim got up on stage and said, I'm about to perform something, and all the white people in the room, this is not for you, don't come up and talk to me about it.
Beautiful.
And I'd never heard that before in my life. I didn't even consider that. Like it hadn't even occurred to me that would be something I don't want, and that I could demand or not demand. So thank you so much. That was very forming for me. It actually changed my life a little bit, changed my performance career. And in response to that question, thank you for the question. And hello, it's nice to see you. I used to perform in a way that was like sort of apolitical or neutral, whatever. I was performing with a white gang of people who were like very nice Newfoundlanders, but I was doing Canadiana. I call it Canadiana because it's stuff I had to learn, like Kids in the Hall and all these people I didn't know, and I had to like sell this brand of humor and this brand of performance, which I did. I slayed.
Yes.
I slayed. But then because of Couleur, that beautiful show we were booked at together, I like opened up into exploring my own ancestry and performances, and then I kind of got fixated on it. And I don't know if it's like a dynamic where I'm being pushed into a pigeonhole or not, but it's all I want to explore. I don't want to explore anything else because I am feeling as a rebellious maybe person, maybe the personality that I have, I'm always counter culture. I'm always counter to whatever the dominant space is. And so being here, all I want to do is rep my people and rep myself and rep the unspoken voices in my experience and bring it alive and keep it alive and like recreate and reformulate and go back, but then go forward like Sankofa, the bird, go back and get it. It's yours. You belong to. And if I was performing in Egypt, I would probably do a little bit of a different topic. Like I would probably explore more of the queerness, et cetera, but I would still be focused on my shit, on my ancestry, on my culture. And so as much as I do feel very much about what you're talking about, that exotification, and for me it shows up in terms of being the token. So people are like, oh yeah, this person does shit about this group of people or this topic, therefore they're gonna be the one that always does the thing about this topic. So that sucks. The tokenization sucks because it harms me, but it also harms my community. So the way that I get around that is I adopt people and then I distribute jobs out because I can't do all the jobs and I don't want to do all the jobs. I want to take care of my body. So I distribute out to all my children, and then all my children get rich and we all get rich as a family.
Yeah, so just to add also, I love that. I'm definitely completely in agreement with this, that you hear different jobs, you don't have to take them on, but if they are interesting, passing them on to other members of your community or family, and also just sometimes creating your own, not everyone can and all at the same time, but because I do create events and spaces, that is something that I like, is bringing these people together, as in seeing clearly that in these other spaces, they may be tokenized, they may not even be, receiving their actual value for the work that they do, or almost like they're receiving crumbs or things of the sort, where me, it's just like, we have so much talent, and I want to showcase that, and I want to be able to pay people fairly, but in my way is also that for the other people who are coming into attendance, it's like, do you not see this talent? You should be booking them too, meaning I want to advertise them. So that's something. And me, because I do also perform, the way that I perform is that my talent speaks for itself. You come, you see me, you see what I do. If you want that to be part of your show, is because you thought that I have the quality that you need for, etc. But other than telling me the time, the place, how long my number can be, and if, for example, there's a theme to the show, there is nothing else about what I'm creating that you will tell me. As in, I like organizers that give me carte blanche for my performances. Yeah. Most of my performances, the organizers do not even know what I'm performing. Some of them even receive my music like an hour before the show. They're just, and that's okay because you book me. If you're booking me, it's because you trust my artistry. Meaning, leave it in my hands. If this is, sometimes people message me and they're like, oh, I saw you did that number months ago. I really like that number. And this is the thing, I rarely redo numbers. If you've met CARMEN or Uncle Marley, it is very rare that I redo a number just because the way my art is inspired, I'm creating whatever fantasy, dream, storyline that I need for myself in that moment. Whatever feelings, whatever things that I feel inspired that I want to express. And this can change per week, per month. Does that mean it might be more work for myself? Sure, but that's just how I like to express my art. Meaning, I myself will only take gigs that I'm able to do that. If there are too many restraints, I do not feel comfortable, but that's also because I have that privilege where I also have other work that I do. Of course, now when you're only performing and rent is coming and you need to get what you need, sometimes you have to play around and put yourself in things that you're not always for, but at the same time, in certain spaces, especially if you're being tokenized, boost up your price. Boost up your price. And also your community, talk to the other performers because they've worked with past organizers. They can give you, they can give you more information also. And that doesn't mean like, even if you're just doing like performance or whether it's, a painting or certain galleries, like saying like, okay, I've seen you've worked with them. How was that experience? That way you can be more aware because sometimes you hear things, you're like, oh no, I can't associate myself with you, with this project. While other times you're like, oh, I've heard great things about this. I'm actually down. So yeah, these are just my little 2 cents.
Yeah. Good 2 cents. I'd like to add also, because I'm also a performer. Hello. I don't do all acts for all people. And I've got quite a wide range of characters. And specifically, I do clowning. So I'll paint my face all white and create something new that is completely unrelated to maybe my personal cultural background. I maybe have 2 or 3 acts that are really deeply personal that I will only perform in a few spaces. That's not to say that I'll take gigs that people think are problematic because I'm a little gossipy person and I like to know what's going on and who's doing what. I think it's fun. But I won't give them, what is really personal to me. I'll give them an ice cream man or something really silly and removed for fun. But I also want to just highlight what Phoenix said, because Phoenix was a really important person for me to discover online and then get to know as a human being, as an Iranian person, meeting more Swana people in the performance world. And so that battle of exoticizing has been something that I've been contending with a lot recently because I do want to dive more into cultural work, not just performance-wise, but also in my painting and on other things. It's really important to me. But figuring out how to share that in a way that is not commodifying myself, that's definitely getting my money, but not in a capitalist colonial way,
branding
is real hard. And you do have people, and you do have people that will play it up for the opposition for white people. It's the first word that came to mind.
Good word.
Thank you. And that's hard to also toe the line around because I'm not going to judge somebody else for doing that, but it's also what are we doing here? What are we collectively deciding to do for ourselves and our community as people of color dealing with, so it's a hard thing to do. And the community aspect is really, really important. I feel much more solidified, much more grounded when I know I'm doing things with support. And also, I will just echo what Kim said about advocating for yourself and saying, a hard no is a hard no, and that's totally okay. And something that's hard to get in the practice of doing, but it's really important for us to get in the practice of saying, this isn't for you. I might perform it in front of you, but please don't approach me about this, or I will not perform this in front of you because of XYZ. And being clear about that is honestly a service to other people, because they're not going to ask dumb questions to other people because you've just told them no, Yeah. Anybody else? Any other questions?
Yes. Hi.
Oh, hey, yes.
Hi.
Okay, and then you in the back.
Thank you so much. I'm really enjoying this. I wonder, because recently a friend of mine asked me if I would do diversity work. And yes, and I want to know, how do you enter a space and determine if it's safe for you? What qualifies as a foundation of I'm safe here for you? Because I'm never safe personally, but
That
maybe
is real.
That is
I
real.
hear you. I think as a performer, because I can only speak as a performer, right now, if I feel cared for as a performer, if the person booking me is interested in my safety and comfort and enjoyment, little perks or whatever, drink tickets, whatever, you know what I mean? Representation and visibility, if I'm seeing people who are not of a dominant majority invited, and if it's not using words like diversity and even inclusion is a bit, it's just so unspecific. It's Kim was saying earlier, BIPOC, we're all just grouped together because we're not white. But we don't have anything in common except white people is our commonality. You know what I mean? So, I think specificity is really, really awesome and nice. But of course, that's complicated too, because when you're specific, you are necessarily excluding, right? So I'm curious about other people's answers to this question.
I actually have answers. I'm actually a D&I worker in the nonprofit world, so I go around and I tell white people how to be nice to non-white people. And I make it very clear when somebody comes up to me about asking for a workshop or something. There are things that I will do in mixed groups, and there are things that I will do when I am the only non-white person in the space. And I ask in advance, what's the demographic? If they give me attitude about that question, I don't take the contract. If they tell me what's up, I will send them very clear boundaries around what I will answer, what we will talk about, how I expect to be talked to by the people that I am educating at that time, and different exercises and a lot of resources. And I use my big kid voice and I say, this is what we're doing. You can listen, you can observe, you can absorb, and then you can go home. And so I'm just very, very clear, and I bring out a little bit of heat, and I ask questions beforehand, and if they're open about it, then that's fine. Yeah, but you can reach out to me after if you want to talk about D&I stuff. I'm happy to do that. Yeah, I'm nice when I'm not being mean.
Was that you being mean?
So cute. There was a question in the back. Oh,
wait, Toshiro.
No, c'est correct. We can do the next question, but I just wanted to add something to what you said.
Please.
Ça irait avec, je sais pas si vous connaissez, c'est les horizons d'imaginaire, c'est-à-dire que dans un état, Maya Angelou disait qu'il fallait qu'on ait la capacité de rêver de ce qu'on avait besoin pour nous. C'est-à-dire que quand tu penses à un endroit, qu'est-ce qui pour toi serait un endroit où tu te sentirais safe? Moi je te dirais c'est la première question que tu dois te poser pour savoir si tu es safe. Moi un endroit où je sais où je me sens, où je serais safe, c'est un endroit où c'est majoritairement des femmes, premièrement des femmes de couleur ou des femmes trans de couleur. Ensuite c'est un endroit où on me demande mes pronoms, c'est-à-dire qu'un endroit où on ne m'accorde pas une binarité dès l'arrivée. Donc ça je pense c'est important. Et ensuite comme Phoenix l'avait dit, c'est un endroit où on a un respect pour non seulement ma particularité, mais aussi ma globalité dans l'ensemble. Donc il faut qu'on comprenne que les intersectionnalités existent, il faut que ces gens-là ils les comprennent, que toi tu les comprennes, et à partir de ces horizons d'imaginaire-là, tu pourras sentir les endroits où tu es la bienvenue, où tu ne l'es pas. Et je pense que c'est important qu'on soit capable, en tant que personne de couleur, de les faire et d'avoir ces imaginaires-là, parce qu'on ne les voit pas, on ne les représente pas, et on pense que ces lieux ou ces endroits où on peut être reçu correctement n'existent pas, mais pourtant ils existent. Et à force de pouvoir les imaginer, d'en parler, et de les partager autour de nous et de savoir quels sont les endroits où et avec qui on se sent à l'aise, on pourra créer ces endroits-là et on pourra aussi demander à ce que ces endroits-là soient possibles d'accès. Donc moi, ça irait vers là ma réponse.
Hi, hello. I want to take the question a little bit broader. From what I understand, most of you are performers, but we're here because we're queer. It's a Pride Week. And I'm very interested in the idea of building a community, but I feel very lost sometimes in terms of like how to serve the queer community. So what would you say would be maybe a blind spot that you experience concerning maybe the services or the efforts that have been made to serve the queer community?
That's a great question.
That's a very good question.
Well, I think a major blind spot is queer people not advocating for themselves. Like, you're asking what you can do to be of service, which is amazing, but the best thing that you can do to be of service is to take care of yourself and show up as an authentic, genuine person in the community at the capacity that you're able to. I feel like queer people often overcommit and overextend. We give too much. Yeah, take care of yourself and like to show up. And have fun. You're here. Hi.
Yeah, worry about yourself. I think that like when you start worrying about yourself, you care for other people. I think that that's where the work starts. Like it's really like with like about yourself. I think I always like encourage people to like be selfish. Like be selfish in like a very like, you know, like loving manner, whatever you wanna call it, but like being selfish, like having a moment in your life that you know that like this was about you and it was just about you. I think it makes you a much better person in the future because you have like learned and like have taken care of yourself so much that now you kind of like you have space to care for other people, and you also have space to not do the things that you don't. You create better boundaries when you have cared for yourself because you know what you can and cannot take. So I would say that like if you are asking yourself that question, that's amazing because you have obviously like you expressing that you have the capacity and the want to like be present. But I think like absolutely like the best thing you can do, worry about yourself. Worry about yourself.
I'll add a little bit, just because sometimes the way my brain takes in certain questions might be a little bit different. So to me, it's almost as if I'm hearing that, well, for me, my main love language, one of my major ones, is acts of service. And because as acts of service and because I love the community so much, it explains why I do what I do, which is to me a big labor of love. And maybe you feel this way too, where you love the community, you want to be even more part of the community, and maybe your way of being able to express this is through possibility of acts of service. And that's the thing that I like that Kim mentioned, is knowing yourself, because when you are aware and very self-aware of yourself and your needs, and also what you do and what you can't do, then that allows you to be more available to certain things. Meaning, what are your interests? What are your passions? What are things maybe that you hate, that you dislike? And then through these passions, they can lead you to certain events, certain people, certain spaces. And then once you're there, because you are who you are, you're authentically being yourself, and you're already in places that already interest you, then your other talents and skills and resources can be shared. Yeah. So, and that's not just with you, that can be with anyone or even organizations, realizing what is it that you have, whether it's, physical, mentally, emotionally, things you're capable of, resources you have, what are things that you enter. And, when I said passions, I also said things that you hate, meaning, you hate transphobia, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go join the trans march tomorrow, and you're gonna walk, and that's you doing your part for the community, and that's from a passion of yours. And that's something that I think anyone can think about doing, and just seeing exactly, being aware of self, and then from self, going towards the things that interest you, and then from there being able to showcase yourself and share what you have with everyone else. And that's the best way to just be authentically yourself and not being put in a box either. And then at that point, there's certain things you won't even have to look for, they will just come to you.
I love that, and I just want to synthesize the two answers that were said, and just kind of put the question back on you, as a queer person of color, you are the best research subject. What do you feel is missing in your life, and what needs to be addressed, and what needs to be changed for you? And then, me not being an organizing kind of person, I'm very disorganized. I wouldn't try to reinvent the wheel. I would just join on the backs of people who are already existing, like an organization, or maybe ancestors who did that work, and now you're picking up where they left off. Do you know what I mean? And then finding community within that to support you in building community, because you also need that support.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. There's about 10 minutes left in our time. We got time for one more question. Someone just raise their hand. Come on up. I love your hair. You're welcome.
Epic.
So earlier you mentioned, when you talk about the safe space, you mentioned you want to go to a space where you want to see different kind of body types. So that's kind of where the root of my question is. I go a lot of online queer Asian forums, and one of the issues that got brought up over and over is body dysphoria. Queer Asian men will usually consider feminine and stuff, and a lot of advice that were given on the forum is that, oh, go to the gym, buff up, and you feel better.
Oh.
That's actually a lot of the advice people are given. People were so that's a thing. I want to assume that that's not a wrong approach. I also don't want to assume that there's a right approach or something, but there's also kind of two school of you should learn to love your body and accept your body as it is, and then people who want to hit the gym and change their body shape. I don't want to think that either one is bad, but it's very conflicting. And sometimes I struggle with that. It's which is the right way? If I feel if I go to the gym and work out, then I'll be disappointing all these learnings that all these things I learned about. You should learn to love yourself. But if I just don't go to the gym, and then be would I be missing out something? So it's how do you navigate that? How do you just how do you navigate and balance the two schools of whether you want to go to the gym or you want to just learn to love your body?
I would love to try to take a stab at that question. I think there is a great balance between taking care of your body and having goals of strength and different abilities that you are trying to strive for, without discounting yourself and therefore other people with different abilities. By doing that. And there's really a lot in moving and striving and stuff like that, but then there's also, you have to rest, because in every body, movement is good and rest is good, and the idea is finding a balance. Also, you can work really, really hard at something and never feel good enough. So I think it starts with feeling good enough, and then you can work hard from a place of empowerment, not from a place of desperation and self-hatred, because it will never satisfy you. That's one thing. Second of all, surround yourself with more positive people.
Yeah.
Those people, they may be innocent, but it's what they believe is toxic. It's ableist, and something that I'm starting to come around to I've been missing in action from disability justice completely, because I haven't realized until this pandemic that we are all heading towards a spectrum of disability. We're all going to be disabled. Like, if we aren't already, we all will be. That is the natural course of humans. That is the natural course of nature. That is the natural course of having an organic body. So just be blessed that you can do things. Like, I've noticed that you can walk around and you can use your arms, and it looks like you can see, and you can hear, and you can speak. And these are all really privileges for you to not take for granted anymore. Like, we take them for granted. It's normal. We live, we wake up, we have capitalism to deal with. We take things for granted, right? But just take a moment and remember that a lot of people don't have what you have, and you could also lose what you have. So appreciate what you have today, right now. And anyone who's like not seeing you for who you are and is just seeing your body is really, it's a great screen for people that are not for you.
I want to add, because obviously we're very different, but I'm like a hairy, chubby femme person who's recently started to work out. And I'm a really big fat activist. Like, I advocate for fat people and their rights. And there's so many things I can say about that. But as somebody who's like started recently to work out and to take that very seriously, it's come in conflict with my advocacy and what I'm saying to people about loving themselves, but also working out. And it's been kind of trippy to figure out. And I'll just like very openly say that my goals around working out are so that I can age with autonomy. I work with a lot of older people, and I've seen them lose their physical autonomy as they age, and I'm really conscious of that. And that's where that and smashing watermelons with my thighs are my two main goals. But I think that like working out doesn't mean that your body's going to look any different. And people think that it will, but it doesn't always. Like, different bodies do different things, and like just because you're working out doesn't mean that you're going to get a shredded pack of some kind, or like, you know, do whatever, you know? So I think keeping that in mind when you see comments like that online around you should work out to do whatever is really important, because that's not how those goals work. And then also just keeping in mind that, like, I mean, like Phoenix said, you're honoring what your body can do, and you're celebrating that, and you're, you know, paying homage to the gods with your sweat is how I see it. And like those two things can come together, and you feel empowered once you realize that, like, hell yeah, I can do that, you know, box jump that's like 1.5 feet, like fuck yeah, you know. And there's different things that that come into play, and just working out does not mean 6-pack.
And also there is so much racism in the idea of a perfect body or a body type that is good. Like, it's really like there are so many different peoples in this world who ancestrally lived in a specific way and did specific things for their community and were like important for that. And you can see how all of us, you can see where we come from because of our bodies, right? You can sort of like have an idea. And I think that it's really important to recognize that being like a person of ancestry, you will inherit a type of body. And you can work out, you can go to the circus, you can do whatever the fuck you want, but you're not going to be taller. You're not going to be, you know, you have a different shoe size. You know, you will always inherit things. And it's best to love those things that you've inherited, understand why and how you've inherited them, and who your ancestors are, what they look like, and why it's theorized or whatever. Why is it amazing that I have these curves? You know, why is it amazing that my hair coils? Why is this nose this way? This is so interesting to me. You know, like, I'm not trying to say like this is good or this is bad or put a value judgment on anything, because it's all good. It's all good. The only thing that's bad is
having one image that is actually the one that everybody have to look like.
Take it away.
So basically, I'm going back to that. We are in a society where today we think that our body is so easy to be changed that everything is doable to actually change, bleaching, surgery, all those things. I mean that we don't take in consideration what you said, which is like the ancestry and like the diversity and power of those body and different type of body that we have. And being in this society today where we projecting picture of that image that have been
Of health.
Of health, exactly. What is healthy and how we should look and what is the right way to grow old. And I'm like, no, there is so many different type, so many different sizes. And growing up between Africa and Europe and seeing that actually those body was being valued in some other country and was devalued in other country made me understand that those imagery that we're being pushed through are not necessarily linked to us, and they're like the projection of the society that they want to see on us. So being able to go away from that and taking in consideration everything that is ours and what we can change in a healthy way without wanting to look like somebody else is actually not a bad thing, because working out is part of like giving honor to your body, you know? So yeah, of course you can change your body, but remember that the dysmorphia is there because there is that image that is linked to that superiority, that capitalism that we have to look like. But that is not the goal at the end of the day, because we are so diverse and there is so many different shapes and bodies that are amazing that we should be able to see those and be able to actually take into consideration those body and those type of body to understand where we are and where we stand with our own body.
And having your image of health be like reflected by your body and not some other imaginary body. And then also being conscious of the gaze that is making you seek validation from certain eyes.
Thank you. We're at the end. Sorry?
Okay, I want to add like a sentence.
You can add a sentence.
Okay.
Do it.
Quite. Okay, so just because this question was specifically about the gym, this is my thing. If your reason to go to the gym is for the approval of other people for your body, it doesn't matter. You're never going to be satisfied. Who is this person? Because in different people, different bodies mean different things, meaning you're not going to feel good about yourself. Now, if you want to go to the gym, ask yourself, what are my reasons? What are my goals if I want to go work out? Do you want to, for example, me sometimes I like to focus on like my cardio because I perform and I want to make sure that I'm able to perform longer numbers. Sometimes also because I want to have longer sex sessions, literally, like it could be that. Sometimes I want to increase my strength. And at one point, I definitely know at the start of the pandemic, I was really working on like trying to get stronger because I was just like, I'm really getting angry at some of the harassment I'm getting in the street with my girlfriend, and me meaning, who knows, maybe one day I might need to knock a few heads, but I'm gonna be ready. I'm gonna be ready if that ever comes to be. So that is more that, as in realizing what are your needs, but making sure that these needs are not just projections of these awful systems and society, or just this one person. As if you have a crush on someone and that crush literally is like, I only date these types of people, then that person is not for you. Screw them. Bye.
Yeah, big time.
Bye, Felicia.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, that's our time. Thank you to our amazing panel. And thank you to our wonderful audience and the internet. And to Fierté Montréal, thank you for hosting us. And to Full Circle. And am I forgetting anybody?
Just you.
Oh, me! Thanks to me!
Big host.
Oh. Thank you. Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you.